suspects are being. One case involves the FBI is now offering $100,000 to see for the police are releasing.
Welcome to Misty Mysteries, a true crime and paranormal podcast. This week I bring you an encounter with a serial killer. A woman's mother recalls when she was pregnant with her, sleeping in her room one night, and she saw a man trying to get into her bedroom window. So she ran to her mother, the storyteller's grandmother, who then ran outside with a baseball bat and started swinging and hitting the man with the bat. The man ran off, and the grandma didn't think much of it until she saw Richard Ramirez on the news when he got caught, and remembers that that was the man she beat outside the window that one night. This week, I'm going to be talking about a 21-year-old unsolved case about a 17-year-old girl who never made it home in Glenageary South Dublin. Have you heard of Anchor? Anchor is the easiest way to make a podcast. When I started Misty Mysteries, I didn't know where to go, and Anchor helped me get Misty Mysteries started without charging me an arm and a leg. Anchor is really my suggestion for anyone looking to start a podcast. It has tools that allow you to record and edit in-app or on the website. Anchor distributes your podcasts on all the listening places such as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Good Pods, and all your favorite listening places. It's everything you need to make a podcast all in one place, and best of all, it's totally free, all on Anchor FM and on the Anchor app. Raonaid Murray was born January 6, 1982, to Jim and Deirdre Murray in Glenageary, South Dublin. Raonaid was the baby of the family, being the youngest of three children, a brother named Daniel and a sister named Sarah. As a child, she loved Winnie the Pooh, which followed into her teenage years. Raonaid went to St. Joseph's Secondary School, a Catholic all-girls school in Killiney, Dublin. While at school, she made a group of friends she would spend most of her time with. Her group of friends was considered goth to people around town because they wore all black and listened to grunge music. Raonaid seemed to be described as quite the opposite. She loved wearing bright colors most days and was an avid George Michael fan. Her friends said she shared so much positivity and laughter in their group. She was witty and could come back with a sarcastic comment quicker than anybody else. Raonaid went by the nickname Rainy, and outside of her friends and music, she loved the writer Dylan Thomas. Her favorite book was the 1954 Under Milk Wood by Dylan Thomas. She loved poetry, reading, and writing. When she graduated secondary school in June 1999, she wanted to go to University College of Dublin for art to become a writer. When she did graduate, June 1999, her marks weren't where she exactly wanted them to be, and she needed to go to the Institute of Education before she could go to the College of Dublin. During her time at the Institute, she landed a part-time job at a woman's clothing store called Sally West, where she worked the night shift while going to school in the morning. Her boss at the shop would describe her as innocent, saying she wouldn't do anything without asking permission first, even asking to make phone calls before she did. On the summer morning of September 3rd, 1999, Raonaid's day started later than usual. She slept in and needed to call the Institute to let them know she wouldn't be coming in that day. The Institute told her it was okay and that she could make up what she missed that Friday on Monday morning. After waking up and calling the university, she got ready for her day. She wore a blue short-sleeved top, dark pants, black ankle boots, and had a black shoulder bag, and she headed to her job at the Sally West shop for her shift that day. Raonaid had two visits during her shift. First, during her 1-hour break at 4:40 p.m. that she spent hanging out with a friend, and when she got back to work, her mother spent some time at the Sally West shop. She had called her mother during her shift to let her know that the shop was having good sales and to come stop by to find things she may like. Her mother remembered when she got to the shop, she saw her daughter working barefoot because her shoes were hurting her feet. And after shopping, she remembers her daughter saying, "Bye, Mom. See you later." Raonaid was also given a key to the shop during her shift that day for her good work and decision to stay at the shop working while going to school. Her shift ended at 9:30 p.m., where she left with a coworker and headed to a nearby pub called Scotty's Pub to meet with her friend. The friend she met with was the same friend she met with during her break previously in the day. They sat in the pub talking. She drank 2 drinks before leaving at 11:22 p.m. to head home to change into a new outfit she bought at work that day and get money before meeting a group of friends at the Paparazzi nightclub. Her home was only 15 to 20 minute walk from the shopping center where she worked and Scott Pubs was. But she wasn't seen again until 12:03 a.m., 40 minutes after she left the pub, and she was seen on a street that marked halfway to her house. At 12:33 a.m., an hour after she left Scott's Pub, 17-year-old Raonaid Murray was found murdered with stab wounds not too far from her home. Sarah, Renee's sister, and a group of Sarah's friends got out of the taxi not too far from their home when she saw a young woman with a Sally West bag lying on the ground. She immediately recognized her sister and ran to her when she discovered she was covered in blood lying on the ground. Sarah ran to the house to call for help, while one of her friends, who was a nurse, stayed by Renee's side, but sadly she already knew it was too late. Her parents came running right as the Garda showed up to scene. Raonaid Murray had been stabbed 4 times in the back and on the side by a 2-inch knife, believed to be a kitchen butcher knife. The attack on Raonaid took place not too far from where she was found. She had traveled 50 yards from where the attack took place before she collapsed. The detectives on her case knew, finding out who killed her, they would need to know her whereabouts for the hour between when she was last seen and the site of her attack. Many witnesses came forward to try and help, but the 2 that the detectives took seriously was a couple who heard an argument at 12:10 near where she was attacked. The 2 were in their backyard when they heard a woman yell at a man, "Leave me alone, go away, and fuck off," and then followed by a scream from the woman and complete silence. The couple didn't think much of it and went on with their night until they found out about Raonaid's murder. The second witness saw Raonaid at 11:53 p.m. with a man in his early 20s with light brown, almost dirty blonde hair, blue eyes, an earring on the top part of his left ear, and glasses. The man seemed to be harassing her. When her friends were investigated and questioned, the man the witness saw matched the description of a man that Raonaid was dancing with during a night out 5 weeks earlier in July 1999. She also went out to eat with the man on that same night in July. This man is believed to be part of a group of men that previously sexually assaulted a woman at a party, but he has never been identified, even with the detectives speaking to multiple men that match his description. He is still one of the chief suspects in Raonaid's murder. The other chief suspects in her case come from a report a taxi driver made about a man he picked up at the shopping center Raonaid worked at an hour after the attack that ended her life. He told detectives that the man had stains on the top part of his pants and bottom of his shirt that looked like blood stains. In the taxi, he was acting aggressive and trying to cover up the stains. He made the driver uncomfortable, and another suspicious thing was he told the driver he was out at a club and needed to get home before his girlfriend got home, but halfway through the drive, he changed his address, adding additional time to his ride. When the driver dropped him off at the address he gave, a spotlight lit up in the driveway, but he didn't see the man go inside. He thought the man hid in the bushes outside the house. And when detectives spoke to the owners of the house, they confirmed nobody under the description the taxi driver gave has ever lived in there or visited there. The Garda released the sketch pictures of the taxi passengers, and the article is being released for naming him the chief suspect. while others named the blue-eyed, blonde-haired man as the chief suspect. Both of them seemed to be unidentifiable until a year later, when the taxi passenger was arrested for an attack on a taxi with a knife and an attack on another woman. The man was a chef, and when arrested had a knife on him that was tested as the murder weapon but didn't match. The day after his arrest and his release, Raonaid's grave was vandalized and pieces of it destroyed. Her grave was the only grave in the cemetery to be attacked that day. Her family believed it had something to do with his arrest and made him seem more suspicious. On the 5th anniversary of her death, the taxi passenger wrote a note to the family telling them the detectives are looking at the wrong people, and they wrote off who actually killed her too soon. This letter seemed suspicious, almost as if the man was trying to get detectives off of him, but made them look further into him. They marked the letter important at first, but later wrote it off. In a documentary called Raonaid in Glenageary by Graham Jones, the documentarian claimed to have spoken to a retired detective from her case who informed him this man wasn't a random man. Her friends, while being questioned, informed detectives the man had been around their group and spoken to Raonaid before, but didn't know his name. The detectives on Raonaid's murder investigation reported in 2003, 4 years after her murder, that they had made 14 arrests and conducted over 9,000 interviews with no convictions in her case. 21 years later, almost 22 years, her case is still unsolved and being investigated by the detectives. The detectives have over 20 lead suspects, including multiple men who have bragged about killing Raonaid while drinking with friends or talking to people in prison. Despite all the leads, her murderer is still out there, and her family fights to bring her justice. Raonaid Murray was laid to rest in a beautiful funeral service that included friends, family, and even strangers flowing out of the church. She had 7 pews of flowers donated by mourners and even arrangements sent by Sally West, the Institute of Education, and the paparazzi nightclub she was supposed to be going to that night. Her father has come out to say, "Time has not lessened our grief and loss, but sent it deeper and made it more profound. Raonaid died alone and frightened. Her killer is free. For Raonaid's sake, help find her murderer and get the justice she deserves. Please help us by coming forward now." If you have any information, please contact the Garda Incident Room at 01666-5000 or 01666-5012. They also have an anonymous tip line at 1-800-666-111. Thank you for listening to Misty Mysteries. If you like the podcast, please share with friends, family, and on social media. Speaking of social media, you can find the podcast on places like Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Please leave a good review for the podcast on places like Apple Podcasts and Podchasers. Sharing the podcast and leaving good reviews is a free way to help support the podcast. If you would like to support the podcast further, you can find the podcast on Buy Me a Coffee, where you can do a one-time donation for a shout-out on the next episode, or with a membership, you receive a free exclusive episode with a choice of topic for a future episode. You can find the podcast on listening places such as Spotify, Anchor, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and so many more listening spots. As always, my sources can be found in the episode description, and I'll see you on Sunday.